Claudine James, Malvern Middle School English teacher. I'm going to read to you today a book called Dear Mr. Rosenwald, The School That Hope Built. As I'm reading this book, you're going to learn a lot about history, and then later on, we're going to tie it to our local history. Dear Mr. Rosenwald, The School That Hope Built. It is by Carol Boston Weatherford, and it is illustrated by Caldecott honoree R. Gregory Christie. Dear Mr. Rosenwald, 1921, one-room school. My teacher, Ms. Mays, said, "You can't judge a school by the building. When the roof leaks, she calls us vessels of learning. When the floor creaks, she says, knowledge is a firm foundation." Wind whistles through walls, blowing the sheet that splits the church into classrooms. Me on one side, Junior on the other. Till I passed fourth grade, I sat behind him, counting with my fingers and fidgeting on the pew. Now, I know better. My school is not much to speak of, but Mama says I'm lucky, even if class don't meet during harvest. Down here, she said, some black children go to school in shacks, corn cribs, just not at all. Don't know what I'd do if I couldn't go to school. Harvest break. Just when I memorize the timetables, instead of learning long division, I'll be working in the fields. Sharecropping. 6 long weeks down row after row. Me and Junior worked right alongside Mom and Daddy, picking cotton till our fingers bled. Finally, Daddy put the last bell on the wagon and rode to town. He said our share of the harvest should pay off the season's debt and leave money to spare. Daddy was wrong. He came home with rock candy for me and little brother, but bad news for Mama. We owe more to the white man who owns the land than we made selling the crop. Same story as last year. After supper, I leafed through an old Sears catalog, wishing later. I heard Mama fretting about the baby on the way. Another mouth to feed. But I hope it's a girl. Supper. Uncle Bo ate supper with us. He sure talks a lot. I reckon because he's a preacher. But that don't explain why he eats so much. Between helpings, he invited Mom and Daddy to a rally at church tomorrow to drum up support for a new school. Soon, Uncle Bo said, "Drum, Junior, stop rapping on that table. Rat-a-tat-tat-tat-tat-tat." That's how he went. "Mind your manners," Mama said. New school rally. Uncle Bo opened up with a prayer. Then Professor James from the normal school stood in the pulpit, spoke as if he were used to people listening to him. Years ago, Booker T. Washington started Tuskegee Institute in Alabama. The college grew strong as an oak, but Booker T. would not seek the shade, not as long as young minds were starving. Too many children, too few schools, and not nearly enough money. Julius Rosenwald, the president of Sears and Roebuck, has millions, earned every penny of it, and believes in sharing. So Booker T, he wrote Up From Slavery, opened up Mr. Rosenwald's mind. Here's what happened. Booker T wanted to build schools. Mr. Rosenwald wanted to open up his wallet. After Booker T passed, Mr. Rosenwald kept building. Not just schools, but pride. Before his foundation would give a cent away, you had to raise money on your own, while white folks had to pitch in too. There will be one hurdle after another. Do you children really deserve a new school? Everyone in the church stood up. Everybody was clapping. How on earth would poor people find money to give away? But I was excited. Taking root. The church deacons voted to give an acre of land for the new school. Space for a building, playground and garden, land that would have been used for graves. Now, a seed is sold instead. The box party. Mom and Daddy say raising money is hard work. I say it brings folks together. Mr. Benson, a black farmer, let the rest of us plant a plot of cotton on his land to sell for the new school. Other folks raise hogs and chickens to sell. Box parties were my favorite. Me and Mama, we baked 2 apple pies, put them in a box, tied the box shut, Mr. Tanner said he smelled cinnamon all the way through that box. It made his mouth water. He bought our box and ate a slice right away. Daddy bid on the shoebox, but Uncle Bo's bid won. Inside was a dancing doll that Mr. Green had carved. Daddy blew a jig on his harmonica, and he did the doll dance. Passing the plate. Homecoming Sunday, a church full. Uncle Bo didn't mention them. He didn't need to preach a sermon after going on and on about the new school. Said we're gathering money in a nickel and dime at a time. The ushers passed the plate. Afterwards, Uncle Bo waved envelopes that the white neighbors sent. $20 in all. Then the choir sang, "The Lord will make a way somehow." Just before the services ended, Miss Edame asked to have a word. Miss Edame said, "I was born a slave. I worked hard every evening, and then freedom came my way. Never had time for the book learning," Miss Edame said. "But here's $1 and the money I've been saving for my burial. Hurry and build that school so I can learn how to read the Bible," said Miss Edame. The blueprints. Professor James came around to see how close we are to breaking ground. After Uncle Bo told how much money had been raised, the professor beamed with pride. "You're halfway to the goal." Then he unrolled a big drawing. Blueprints by Tuskegee Architect. 17 different floor plans, some with up to 7 rooms. I get lost in a building that big, I told Mama. Our school will have 2 classrooms with a moving wall in between, a room for home arts and trades, a cloakroom to hang up our coats, and plenty of windows to look out and daydream, because we'll probably do that too. Lumber. A family is like a tree, Daddy always says. Ours sprouts a new leaf, and we call that leaf Leona. My baby sister, that's her name too. Soft and brown and bright-eyed. I sing lullabies when she cries at night. This child will have a better chance, Mama said. Soon building plans start on the new school. Several farmers, some black, some white, cut trees from their land, hauled them to the sawmill, and got them cut. Then they dropped off the lumber on the lot beside the church. You know what I say? Those trees are about to make history. Yes. Raising the roof. I never knew how fast a building could take shape. After plowing all day, the men hammer and saw till the sun sets, and they can't see anymore. Just before the cold snap, they raised the roof. Soon as the weather breaks, said Daddy, walls and windows will go up, and it won't be long before we have ourselves a new school. Hand-me-downs. Some men were chopping wood for the classroom's pot-belly stoves, and other men were painting cream ceilings and gray walls. When a truck pulled up with old desks and used books from the white school, Miss Mays, she thanked the driver again and again. Then she gave us erasers to clean straight marks from the books, scribbles, doodles, and answers and names. We cleaned all of that off. I wonder if white boys and girls learn the same way that we were about to learn. Playground. Daddy hung a swing from a branch of the old oak tree, and Uncle Bo, he drove a stake in the ground for horseshoes. Junior pitched first, almost got a near ringer. I'll have to practice before I try to beat him. 1922, White Oak School. Uncle Bo cut the ribbon at the doorway, and we marched into the new school, proud as we could be. The place sparkled, and after we sang Lift Every Voice, Professor James told us that we had to be proud, and we were. Learning is priceless, he said. He gave Miss Mays a framed picture of Mr. Rosenwald for the lobby. Because, see, he was our hero now. Uncle Bo called Miss Shaw up front, a pretty new teacher from the city. No more 8th grades. In one room, Miss Shaw has a sing-song voice. Children, she said, you are diamonds in the rough, and I will polish you to make you bright as a star. speak next. Oh, my hands were clammy and my knees were shaking, and I had my heart in my throat. But I got up and said, thank you, parents. Thank you, neighbors. Thank you for this brand new school building. Your sweat has taught us one big lesson, that tomorrow is in our hands. And then I said, dear Mr. Rosenwald, even before the bell rang, we children lined up at the door. Me with bows in my hair and ham biscuits in my lunch pail. I shared a desk with Miss Lottie Mae. Miss Shaw got busy right away. Our first lesson, letter writing. Dear sir, I am 11. I like to read books. My best subject is arithmetic. My parents are counting on me to learn all that I can. This school is the first new thing I've ever had to call my own. I'm going to stitch me a dress in the sewing classroom. One day, see, I want to be a teacher just like Miss Shaw. Thank you, Mr. Rosenwald. Yours truly, Olivia. Rosenwald School and African American Education. Public education was not widespread in the United States until Reconstruction, the period after the Civil War. Many public schools that did exist during the antebellum period did not include room for blacks to learn. As early as the 17th century, free blacks sued to enroll their children in school. Some slave masters believed that education would make one unfit to be a slave and perhaps even encourage revolting. Thus, several states forbade enslaved people from learning to read or write. But Booker T. Washington, who lived from 1865 to 1915, was born into slavery, but he became the first principal of Tuskegee Normal and Industrial School, which is now Tuskegee University. His autobiography, entitled Up from Slavery, was published in 1901, and for more than half a century was the most popular African-American book in print. He was very prominent and he was recognized throughout as a fighter for education. And here is what happened. Booker T. Washington met Julius Rosenwald, the child of Jewish immigrants. He was a self-made millionaire. He invested money, and before long, his simple investment netted him over $80 million. He invested in what was called Sears and Roebuck. I'd call that like a modern day Amazon. And he had lots of money. And after meeting Booker T. Washington, they started a fund to build schools for African Americans all over the South. Rosenwald schools were built all over the South from 1917 to 1932. They were anywhere from 2 rooms to 9 rooms. There are examples of Rosenwald schools all throughout this book. Rosenwald schools were a sign of progress and a source of pride in the African American community. It was where different African Americans could come together and receive an education. Behind me, you see our community's Rosenwald School. This school, which opened in 1929, was built by funds from the local school board, funds donated from the African American community, and funds donated by Julius Rosenwald. This school opened up in 1929 as Malvern Colored School. It started out with just elementary grades and eventually ended up with grades all the way through the 12th grade. As you look at the school and see its disarray, you know that it is in need of an immense amount of repairs in order to save it. This school is the only one in the state of Arkansas of its size that is still remaining. The other one that was built that was of this size was Scipio Jones School in North Little Rock, and it has since been demolished. I ask of you to help save our local history, and will be forever thankful as African Americans for Mr. Rosenwald for helping to build schools throughout the South, and most importantly, building Malvern Colored School in 1929 in Malvern, Arkansas.